Hey everybody, I'm Simon Carrington, founder of Fire Up Ministries, and I'm really grateful to be on to have been asked to speak at the Smart Catholics virtual conference. And my talk is entitled "How to Build Authentic Intimacy." Now, I'm going to summarize a talk that I normally give to married couples. And certainly this talk is targeted at married couples. However, if you're engaged or in a dating relationship, there are certainly heaps that I'll be saying today that you'll be able to implement into your relationship right now that I know will help you to build a much greater relationship and a stronger foundation for your marriage in the future. However, for those of you that are married, this talk is really targeted to that feeling of sometimes that, I'm just surviving in my marriage. I'm not thriving in my marriage. Myself and my spouse, we wouldn't describe our love as passionate, as intimate, and as romantic. And what I want to share with you in this short time we have together is my own marriage shock, which helped me realize that the most important thing in life is to build an intimate relationship and to constantly strive and be intentional about pursuing deeper levels of intimacy in your marriage always. So what's the marriage shock? Well, one day I came home from work, and I didn't really, encounter my wife, Madeline, with a kiss and a hug, and be really excited to hear how her day was. I just kind of dumped my bag at the door. I went into our kitchen. I made myself a coffee. Grabbed some biscuits, and I just parked myself on the lounge, put my feet up, and started reading a book. And what Madeline said really shocked me. She said, "Wow, that didn't take long." And what she shared or explained afterwards is that really what she was hinting at here is that she couldn't believe how quickly I became complacent in our marriage. Just to paint a picture for you to make it sound a little bit worse on my end, this was only 6 weeks into our marriage. And it was the first day, perhaps I had a bit of a rough day at work. And already I let that stop me from encountering Madeline in the way that I should have encountered my wife upon returning home from work. Really, if a marriage falls apart through a divorce, it is never because of an argument that they had on their 10th year of the marriage that just made them decide we're not made for this anymore. It's most likely that if a couple get a divorce 10, 15, or even 20 years into their marriage, they stopped pursuing each other in an intentional, intimate, passionate way many, many years before the day they've decided they had enough of that marriage. So really, and this is evident this was evident in the story that I'm sharing now, is that already I was becoming complacent in a marriage that had only been in existence for 6 weeks at this point. What I want to share with you is that the key to a great relationship is to build authentic intimacy and to never stop pursuing intimacy with your spouse. Now, there's many misconceptions about what intimacy is in a dating relationship or even in a marriage, and that seems to be the misconception that it's just sex. This couldn't be further from the truth. Intimacy is not measured by how close two bodies that are naked are together. In fact, if you do not have a healthy emotional, psychological, and spiritual bond and relationship with your spouse, then in fact the sexual act can often even be a source of pain and make you feel like I am not connected to my spouse, and we begin to question, is this act even a sincere act of love? I like to describe the physical or the sexual element of a couple's marriage as merely the icing of a three-tiered cake. You need to have a healthy emotional, psychological, and spiritual foundation. Otherwise, the icing just makes no sense. Intimacy is not simply about how much sex a couple has. Intimacy focuses on building the three foundations of a relationship. So this means to be completely known by the other person, to have the confidence, to have the trust that no matter what I'm going through, no matter what weaknesses I have, no matter what sin I struggle with in my life, there is no sin, there's no struggle, there's no weakness that I have that would render me unlovable by my spouse. That I can trust her or him with anything, no matter what I'm going through. I know they love me, not me apart from my weakness, but because of my weakness, because that is all of me. And love always loves exactly where that person is, although it desires to intercede for that person, it desires to pray, it desires to support and help that person grow always. But how do we build authentic intimacy? At the heart of intimacy is trust. Okay? Trusting that I love this person no matter what, and I know they love me no matter what. And it's that foundation that will turn a marriage from surviving to flourishing and thriving. So what I want to do is I want to quickly fire off 3 points that I think are absolutely essential for any married couple that feel like they're just surviving, to help them get to a position of thriving. The first one almost sounds too simple to be classified as a point, but it is simply this: choose in a mutual way to have a great relationship. Okay, great relationships and great marriages are as rare to find as they are hard to achieve, and it's simply because most people just kind of roll into marriage, they stumble into marriage, but they don't actually take the time before they get married, to plan or decide on what is our vision for this marriage. Are we content with, in 10 years into our marriage, we just watch TV every single night and barely talk? That I'm stuck in my work and you're stuck into your work, and if we're blessed with a few kids, great, but then our life's going to be all about the kids. And have we really spoken about what is my vision and what is my dream for my marriage with my spouse? What do we want it to look like? What do we want to do together? And this is a game changer. My wife and I have a journal where we keep all of our hopes and our dreams. And every time we go, we aim to go on a date once every week, whether it's an in the home date with some crackers, cheese, and some wine, or we actually get someone to look after our son Joseph, one of our mums, and we'll head out and have a nice meal every fortnight or every month. But whenever we go out on these dates, so we have a date night out, we always make it a point to go over our dream journal, share our hopes and dreams with each other, both our individual dreams, but also our dreams as a married couple. This is super important, because if I really want an intimate relationship and marriage with Madeline, how can I possibly feel known by her if she doesn't know what my biggest dreams are for my own life? You cannot have an intimate marriage unless you can state clearly and confidently what your spouse's dreams are for their physical self, for their emotional self, for their professional life. What kind of adventures do they want to go on? What are their hopes and dreams for their spiritual life? Have they got a dream to learn a new language, or to get into painting or dancing or singing? How do they express themselves in the arts that they're not currently doing? And it's our job as the spouse, as the husband or the wife, to not just be open about what your dreams are with your spouse, but to find ways to help your spouse to achieve their dreams. I guarantee you, just this point alone will transform the intimacy in your marriage. There is nothing more intimate than sharing hopes and dreams, and then meeting on a frequent basis to see how you can help your spouse to achieve their dreams. And then you also have a mission statement or a hope and dream for your marriage. And it's so important to constantly come together as a married couple and discuss. There's a real temptation, especially when you start having children, that every time you go out on a date, you just talk about your kids and your children. And although that's important, and when Madeline and I share hopes and dreams, we have many dreams and hopes for our son Joseph. But we must begin every date with, so Maddie, so Simon, how are you? And how is our relationship going? Have I hurt you this month? Is there something you want to talk about? Is there a worry you have? It must begin with you. I saw a meme once, and I've never forgotten it. It said, I'm 51% husband, 49% a dad. Okay? Of course, these two vocations are so important, and it's such a gift to be a father. But guess what? Children are the fruit of marital love. There is almost nothing that makes me more mad when I see a married couple see each other as secondary to their children once they have children. Your vocation, first and foremost, is to love your spouse. And guess what? I always remember hearing my dad say, I love your mother more than anybody in the world, even my children. And guess what? That didn't upset me in the slightest. In fact, that made me secure in my mother and father's love for each other. Because guess what? If my mum and dad love each other perfectly, not perfectly, but if I know they love each other more than anyone in the world, that makes me feel safe being their son and being a part of their family. And I don't have to worry about them splitting off, in years to come. Because one of the biggest heartaches for children of divorce is wondering, well, then what does this mean for me then? If mum and dad's love was temporary, and I was the fruit of their love that was only temporary, what is my place in this world? There is no greater gift you can give your children than to love your spouse more than them. That may seem harsh, but it is the honest and most sincere truth that I need to say in this video. So that's the first point, is choose to have a great relationship. The second thing I would say is make time and priority for what is most important in your life. Now, I guarantee that if I said to you, I want you to list your priorities from your spouse, children, faith, hobbies, interests, friends, work, you would probably say, okay, well, I know that I'm meant to say God's number one. I now know that I'm meant to say my spouse is number two, my kids are number three, work's number four, hobbies are number five. Okay. And maybe on paper, that looks like the right way to have that list. But what I want to encourage you to do now is to pull out a sheet of paper and mark out how many hours a week do you allocate to each of those areas in your life. And I guarantee you they will not marry up with the order of priority list that you put on your own paper first. What does this mean? It's far too easy to get caught up with the urgency and deadlines of work. Way too easy. And we always tend to prioritize what seems to be a deadline and where we seem to get the most praise. Okay, now I've got a 10-month-old son. I've changed, I've had to change a dirty nappy, hundreds of times since he's been alive, and I've never been thanked once. Okay. So there's a temptation to only put your time and energy in where people praise you and affirm you, but really our glory in the eyes of God and where we're needed most is in our home, to be a good husband, a good wife, a good mother, and a good father. So what I want to encourage you to do is have a look at your weekly timetable and find out, have a look at, okay, I'm spending way too much time at work, spending way too much time on myself and my own hobbies and interests. I'm not encountering my children on a weekly basis intentionally. I'm not creating time and space for God. I am not creating a time and space for my wife or husband. And then look at how you can implement those things into your schedule to prove that what you say your priorities are actually your priorities. Also, I want to say this, and this is self-care is a concept that is very misunderstood today. I guarantee you this: if you are not caring for yourself in the way that you need to, not getting enough sleep, not exercising, not taking the time to do things for you, like pursuing your own dreams and hopes that make you feel fully alive, you will not be the kind of spouse your spouse needs you to be for them. You will not be the kind of husband, father or mother that your children need you to be. You will not be the kind of friend that your friends need you to be and your family needs you to be. It is so important that you allocate time every day, every week to do the activity or whatever the activities are that feed your own soul to be restored, rejuvenated, and revived. Okay, so for you, it might be, you know what, every time I go to the beach and I see those waves, I just feel fully alive and healed and restored. Maybe it's you love reading. Maybe for you, you function better when you exercise. Not only do you need to take time for self-care so you can be the best you can be, but work with your spouse to ensure they get the time to do the self-care that they need to feel restored and fully alive as well. I'm going to give you a very quick, just a quick guide as to ways that are really helpful as well to make sure that we prioritize time with our spouse. I want you to try this. 15 minutes of intentional time with your spouse each day. Maybe it's immediately after you come home from work. Give your spouse a kiss, a long hug, ask them how their day is, make a coffee, make a tea, sit down and spend 15 minutes to half an hour if possible, just intentionally encountering them that day. It can be any time of the day, but you need to have a daily check-in with your spouse. Secondly, a 2-hour date a week. This doesn't have to be at a fancy restaurant. It can, as I said, it can be a glass of wine one night of the week, set that every Thursday night is date night. We're going to put the kids to bed and we are going to have a 2-hour date night to go over our hopes and dreams. Maybe every once in a while you do get to go out, but it's not necessary. The next thing is 1 day date per month. Okay, maybe it's not possible to get away for a whole day if you've got children just with your wife or husband, but at the very least, maybe you block out a morning or an afternoon, or maybe you take the entire family on a day out together, just to be restored as a family. And lastly, and this is perhaps the one that's most difficult to implement, but 1 weekend away per year. So finding a time, if possible, to, even if it's 1 night out or 2 nights out, but actually go away with your spouse, take some time together to go over your dreams, go over your hopes, talk about your marriage, talk about your children, and just come back to that mission state for your marriage. Are we living the marriage that we hoped for? If we're not, Why not? And where can we improve? If we are, great. How can we even further the intimacy, passion, and romance that we're experiencing in this marriage? I'm going to end it there. I hope those 2 points have been helpful. Just remember, there is nothing more important or urgent than the intimacy that you must be experiencing in your marriage. Then choose to have a great relationship, have a mission statement, go over your hopes and dreams, and secondly, make time for what's important, especially your faith, your spouse, and your children, but in that order. So that's all from me. I pray this is helpful to you in whatever position you are in your relationship. May God bless you and your family.